The internet. Unfettered access to all the information anyone will ever need right at your fingertips. A medium to contact anyone almost anywhere in the world. A tool for democracy. But is it? Governments have been trying to regulate the World Wide Web since its inception, for a variety of reasons really. But this time, it's the social media giants which run a huge chunk of the internet that are trying their hand at modulating. And modulating the web is now a lot shadier and more arbitrary than before due to a practice often referred to as shadowbanning. Essentially, shadowbanning refers to when a platform reduces the visibility of content posted by a particular user without informing them. This tends to manifest as a drop in engagement figures. The shadowbanned user's content may potentially still be accessed, but with limitations. It may no longer appear as a recommendation in a search result, in a newsfeed, or in other users' content queues. Think of it as a form of soft blocking, or like a futile scream into a void where nobody can hear you. Shadowbanning, like most things, exists on a spectrum. The classical shadow ban buries posts, so they are not made visible to others. A little further down the shadowbanning spectrum, a targeted user's content will no longer appear in hashtags. Group content will no longer appear in feeds, and content will be removed without informing the affected user. And in some cases, their username will not autofill in searches, and content will fail to appear in recommendations. So, who does it affect? Well, it depends on who you ask.
I've had many people say, I can't get on your Twitter. I don't care about Twitter. Twitter's bad news. They're all bad news. But you know what? If you wanna get out a message, and if you want to go through big tech, social media, they are really, if you're a conservative, if you're a Republican, if you have a big voice, I guess they call it shadow ban, right? Shadow ban. They shadow ban you, and it should be illegal.
Republicans have been complaining they drew the short end of the stick on social media since 2018, when Twitter stopped autofilling usernames of prominent Republicans like Representatives Matt Gaetz, Ronna McDaniel, and Jim Jordan. Twitter explicitly said that it does not shadow ban and then made adjustments to no longer limit the visibility of those users. But really, it can affect anyone on any social media platform, whether they be Palestinian rights activists, critics of the Indian government, or Black Lives Matter protesters. A survey of 1,006 US internet users by the Center for Democracy and Technology found that 9.2% of respondents believed they had been shadow banned by some social media service. And recent studies have found between 3 and 6.2% of sampled Twitter accounts had been shadow banned at least once. But now it appears you may not have to rely on user perceptions to pin down whether or not you're being shadow banned. In late April 2023, Twitter declared that tweets can be flagged and have their visibility limited due to hateful speech. Twitter calls it visibility filtering and stresses it's about freedom of speech, not reach. Mostly through keywords and algorithms with a hefty pinch of bias. For instance, The Intercept received leaked documents from TikTok revealing that in 2019, moderators were told to suppress on the For You page visuals featuring people with abnormal body shape, ugly facial looks, disabled people, too many wrinkles, or with backgrounds in slums, rural fields, or dilapidated housing. AI and the algorithms that feed into them do not exist in a vacuum. Rather, they are influenced by the unconscious biases inherent in the developers behind them. In Silicon Valley's case, these developers are mostly white males. Algorithms are also fed data from human history, which Forbes says is replete with violence, iniquity, bias, and cruelty. AI's capacity for learning means that such biases can only grow unless nipped in the bud. Why would social media companies silence the users that keep them afloat? A Reddit post in the early 2010s provides some clues. Reddit has been forthcoming about its use of shadow banning, admitting that they wielded it as a moderating tool primarily on spammers. But Reddit broadened the conditions under which shadow banning is enforced, arguing that it is still the only tool we have to punish people who break the rules. The network opted not to inform users if they had been shadow banned because it was never the norm to do so, and because of scalable and sustainability issues. There's also another reason. Social media companies fear suspending accounts outright will not ultimately stem bad behavior online. On the contrary, suspending or banning accounts could induce affected users to create new sock puppet accounts to continue their behavior, whether it be abuse, misinformation, or spamming. Platforms reckon it's easier to tamp down on rule breakers by limiting who their content reaches, as opposed to banning them and thereby incentivizing them to resurface. Platforms also resort to shadow banning due to something called reverse engineering. This occurs when users who have been flagged for bad behavior receive multiple notifications about rule-breaking content and then find loopholes in regulations to exploit. Because shadow banning is a covert practice, users often don't know for certain if they have been subjected to it and can therefore only speculate on its scope. And the shadowy nature of the practice means users are often unaware of whether their content is doing badly due to opaque content moderation or because the content itself is poor. This murky area is where shadow banning triumphs. So, do you think shadow banning is a necessary evil, or should social media companies just own up already?